Welcome back, General. We have yet another complex and long shell map. Now, as interesting as it is, it would take quite some time to show through all of it, so I'm not going to bother putting everybody through that. Suffice to say that they are fun to look through, if a little predictable. You sort of know that it's never going to end and not really have some sort of finite resolution to it.
Versus General Ling.
Why do you run towards your own demise? Leave this place before you anger me. The might of China falls upon you. In the end, all fall before me.
You know, it sounds kind of counterproductive to constantly nuke Scudstorm and particle cannon your own base or location just to keep people out. Then again, I'm not the super smart general that General Ling apparently is, which I always read as General Liang, so apologies if I mix the two up. There's not really a lot of downtime that we have before things get going here. So, to put it briefly, I'm building a lot of defenses. One, because I need to protect the one bridge into my base, and two, because General Ling is going to have a very nasty surprise for us in short order. It took quite a few retries, not only in playing this, but also recording this. Apparently, Audacity is starting to fail on me, so I have to move to alternative means. And basically, I'm trying to rush my tech tree because I desperately am going to need super weapons in comparison to some of the other earlier generals. In terms of super weapons on the enemy's side, um, General Ling has access to all three tech trees, so she has the Scudstorm, the nuclear missile, as well as the particle cannon. It presents some interesting um, situations in that you desperately don't want to ever be struck by all three of them because you can probably guarantee that you'll lose everything. Literally everything.
Search and destroy.
The Scudstorm itself can easily take out just about everything except the command center, and doubling up on any of the other super weapons basically means that it's death for anything I might have. If I was GLA, maybe it'd be a different story just because of the various building holes that would show up afterwards, but it's not enough to really save you in these sorts of instances. Especially even with a nuke missile being available, you would just have a lot of radiation to have to deal with and so on.
Attack the fool.
Now, building a strategy center causes General Ling to immediately spawn a tunnel defense network, or tunnel attack, whatever, in that particular spot. I've never seen her spawn it anywhere else. It could just be an issue with how I built up my base, or maybe there's a trigger and I missed it and I just don't know. Regardless, it seemed to work well enough for me to build 4 laser turrets. Those are actually going to be useful for a lot more of the scenario than I intended it to. But frustratingly, the tunnel network, even if you destroy it before all the units within it are dumped out, the AI has the ability to still dump them out. It's a little annoying because, well, you don't expect to have to deal with them after destroying it. So it's kind of why you have to go a little extra on your defenses.
Laying the foundation. Something for everyone.
You can see I'm also immediately strapped for cash. And having lost at least one of my Chinooks, a $1,200 investment, is painful.
Leave this place before you anger me.
Thankfully, General Ling's not too great with regards to her patrols, so as long as there's nobody in the near vicinity, you can capture the oil derrick and hold on to it for a lot longer than you might expect.
Have a job for me?
I'm also, as you might imagine, desperate to get level 3, because I really want my A10s so that I can strike at one of the weapons bunkers, whatever they call them, to reset the timer. The timer being 12 minutes for all of her super weapons, and if you destroy one of those weapons depots or bunkers, you essentially reset that back to 12. Someone who might be a little more patient than I was would probably have a better time with resetting the timers on her special weapons. It also comes in handy because it gives you enough time to build your own super weapons so that once all is said and done, you'll be able to strike at her own, whether it's the super weapons themselves or the power plants. Now, because General Ling has access to all 3 of the tech lists, it does mean that her armory, her weaponry is very diverse, and frankly could be quite scary. Sadly, this detail is never really expanded upon, not only in when you fight her, like right now, but also in any of the material. The game manual does not mention General Ling. The strategy guide does not have a page for her. I believe they mention her just because she's the final boss, but it's not something thorough. The only way to get any sort of information on General Ling really is through the various wikis that exist online. And good luck if you were searching for that sort of information back in 2003 or 2004. Obviously, for players who may have known better, you could have just gone through some of the game files and seen, missing units or just unit statistics and whatever. But it's not quite the same as having a pre-generated list to just be more readily available.
I will give you a moment's pause to consider your next move.
Now, there's no real, I want to say, limit. There are certain units that General Ling doesn't have, but in general, she's got all the really good ones. U.S. Rangers, Tank Hunters, Angry Mobs, having Black Lotus, Colonel Burton, and Jarman Kell. Those are all sorts of the special powers, I guess, that she could put to use. I'm sure there's comments about how General Ling was going to be a general, but got cancelled at the last minute due to either budget concerns or time constraints. But regardless of how it eventually made itself, General Ling is kind of one of those what ifs that would have been interesting. There's been several posters in the threads I've made who have made good points as to units and cut content that we don't see. And if I get the chance, I'll try to show them off. I may not. Apologies if I don't. In general, I try to rely on there being more information, more visual stuff I can look at, just because it makes it more interesting. At worst, it'll go into text posts, but in any case, because of the timers that we have to rely on, there's also a very, at least I think it's an interesting quirk. The Scudstorm obviously doesn't rely on power. I don't believe it shuts down if General Ling runs out of power. However, if you destroy it and it gets replaced, it no longer has the 12-minute timer that the other super weapons have. So realistically, there's no point ever trying to destroy the nuclear missile or the particle cannon that she has, because it's better to just have them as useless power sinks for the her power, rather than having them be available. As long as they're unpowered, they're not really going to be dangerous in any sense of the word. As we've seen as well with at least with the Stealth General, there's some annoying portions or particularities about General Ling's attacks, namely that they include rocket buggies, which are hard to deal with. I could build more Avengers, sure, and that might deal with them well enough that I don't really have to worry about it. But frankly, it's sometimes easier to just have a bunch of Apaches on call.
Loaded with U.S. quality. Keep the supplies rolling.
Now, I would like to say that it's because if there's rocket buggies around, the Gatling tanks will generally move up and get destroyed by the turrets first, so I don't really have to worry about micromanaging the two. And I don't have to worry about having Apaches out in the middle of nowhere getting shot down by Gatling tanks and then having that be essentially a waste.
Visibility clear.
I didn't really take that into account when moving here, which is something I need to do because you might notice that the timer's up and she's just used both of her superpowers.
Nuclear missile launched.
Our base is being attacked.
A factory cannot produce war, General. And now your war factory produces nothing.
Low power.
Want to make some improvements?
So not only do I get hit by a particle cannon, I get hit by a nuclear missile, I'm also about to get hit by artillery, and I'm going to get EMP'd. So even if I wanted to do anything with the 4 particle cannons I have, I'm not really going to get an opportunity to for a short while longer. We can also see that she's rebuilt the Scudstorm, which now has a 5-minute timer.
Can't do that. Yeah? Good area. All finished. Locked in. That will bring on the scaffolding.
Unit lost.
Frequency open. Yes, sir. In the field. How about those rocket arcs?
Particle cannon ready.
It's really unfair to have to deal with anti-air units.
Unit lost.
Now, thankfully, I built a bunch of dozers, so I'm not screwed, I guess is the best way for me to put it. However, it does mean that I have to rebuild a lot. I have a lot of money, sure, but it's more the time invested in getting my power back, getting my construction abilities back, etc. There's a I guess, interesting quirk about General Ling as well. We've seen that, one, she has stuff like the EMP strike, but she also has artillery, which she doesn't start using until she uses her super weapons for the first time. I'm not quite sure why that's a limitation. Maybe to make it a point that the if she ever gets a super weapon strike on you, that's sort of the you should have gotten to a certain point in your base, whether it's defenses or being able to strike at her. And it's like a rage timer in a MMO boss. I find that a mission like this also kind of exposes the US as being maybe not necessarily the best option when it comes to playing the General's Challenge. Just because their powers often, some of the good ones, like the Spectre gunship, never really get used. The particle cannon is nice and all. Technically, it's not a bad super weapon. It just kind of sucks because you don't have the ability to do a lot of alpha strike damage, and it doesn't cover anywhere near as much of an area as the other two do. Now, there's a lot of burn damage you can do with it, and we've seen it used time and time again, but it just kind of always feels like the weaker version of the superpowers to me. The Spectre gunship as well is also one of those superpowers that doesn't really ever get to be used because every base is already built up and has hundreds of ways to prevent it. And so you find yourself having it fly across an entire map, get shot along the way, which it has no defenses for, gets to an area, and then is promptly shot down without any fanfare. Also, I don't know if this is a factor of General Ling being a Chinese general and just having a bunch of different buildings, but we don't have to destroy those power plants. I don't know if it's because they're US or not, but regardless, this is the end of the General's Challenge.
I must acknowledge this defeat. You have shown superior tactics, General.
I will be playing this with the GLA general and the Chinese general that the thread has voted for. But just keep in mind that those playthroughs will be far more cut down or spliced together than this one has. Just because the generals don't necessarily change, unfortunately, but we will get to see the defensive setup for General Towns, which should be interesting. So, I hope to see you in those videos as well. Thanks for watching.